Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Markela Petitsis, the Assistant Director of the Maliotis Cultural Center, and it's my joy to welcome you here tonight. We also want to welcome the distinguished presence of His Eminence Bishop John. Thank you for being here. And our chaplain and Father Patrick. Thank you so much. Tonight we have a special presentation of the Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, a special book launch and initial look by John Boyer, the professor here at college, at the Hellenic College. And before we begin our presentation, please allow me to share a little bit about the center. The Maliotis Cultural Center's mission is to promote Hellenic culture and language. We pursue our mission through diverse programming, including lectures, seminars, and conferences, Greek concerts and dance performances, student engagement, traveling and permanent exhibits, and Hellenic American community events, and through the support of patrons and viewers on the live stream like you. The Maliotis Cultural Center also serves as the main social and cultural gathering place for the students of both Hellenic College and Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology. If you enjoy this event, please consider supporting the center by donating on our website or by making a check out to the Maliotis Cultural Center, and also by attending our other upcoming events that are free and open to the public. Tomorrow night, February 16th, MCC has sponsored a group of tickets to attend Berkeley Performing Arts' Mikis Theodorakis tribute concert. On Saturday, the MCC Apokreatiko dance will take place, free and welcome for everyone to attend. Next Tuesday, MCC and HCHC is offering a free sewing and embroidery workshop with a beginner's course by Josephine Breen, and also a surface embroidery course by the renowned textile artist Krista West of Krista West Designs. You can learn about these and more offerings on our website, social media, and through our MCC newsletter, which you can sign up for at the greeting table at the back of the room. Tonight, Maliotis Cultural Center presents Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, with John Michael Boyer. Our host tonight is Richard Barrett, who will introduce our presenters. Richard Barrett is the Director of Publications, Grants, and Operations for Capella Romana, a vocal ensemble dedicated to combining passion with scholarship and its exploration of the musical traditions of the Christian East and West, with emphasis on early and contemporary music. He is also the Director of Music and the Protopsaltis of Dormition of the Virgin Mary Greek Orthodox Church in Somerville, Mass., and the Artistic Director of the St. John of Damascus Society, a sacred arts nonprofit with the mission of revealing Orthodox Christianity through its sacred music. As a performer, he sings regularly with the ensembles of Capella Romana, who we have with us here tonight, Psaltikon, the St. Tikhon Choir, the Patriarch Tikhon Russian American Music Institute Choir, and the Archdiocesan Byzantine Choir of the GOA, and a few others. He has also served as an invited speaker, clinician, and singer at Orthodox parishes and in sacred music conferences throughout the U.S. He has published scholarly articles in Greek Orthodox Theological Review, the Journal of Early Christianity, and Studia Patristica, and he also writes regularly on musical topics for the Orthodox Arts Journal and other publications. He's the Byzantine Chant Liaison for the Metropolis of Boston Choir Federation and the chair of the Liturgical Music Committee for the National Forum of Greek Orthodox Musicians. He holds a Master of Arts in Ancient History with minors in Medieval History and Ancient Studies, as well as a Bachelor of Music and Vocal Performance from Indiana University. He was a fellow in residence at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology during the 14 through 15 academic year, when he also received his performer certificate in Byzantine music. Please join me in welcoming tonight's host, Richard, to the podium.
Your Grace, Reverend Fathers, dear friends, honored guests, welcome. And thank you very much for making the time to be here tonight. My most sincere thanks to the Maliotis Cultural Center's Executive Director, Chrysula Kukundi, and Associate Director, Markela Patitsas, for their tremendous generosity, hospitality, and collegiality in organizing and hosting tonight's event, as well as Monday evening's lecture by our Music Director, Alexander Lingus. We could not have asked for more gracious collaborators, and we are grateful. We look forward to working together more in the future. I must also express my gratitude to Father Romanos Karanos, professor of Byzantine music at Holy Cross, for his support. When I first suggested to him that we might look at doing a book launch event here, he was immediately enthusiastic and pledged to do whatever he could. I must also acknowledge the substantial efforts and generous support of a number of individuals and institutions in making everything leading up to and including tonight possible. Maria Boyer, Jeffrey and Edith Gowan, the International Society for Orthodox Church Music, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Endowment Fund of Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Portland, Oregon, the St. John Kukuzelis Institute of Liturgical Arts, and the St. John of Damascus Society. Please join me in acknowledging them. In 2006, I was taking what could be called generously baby steps into the world of Byzantine chant. Good quality Anglophone resources were few and far between, and access to knowledgeable individuals was sparse at best. Wishing to know better the landscape I was but tentatively beginning to tread upon, I asked my friend Mark Powell, executive director of Capella Romana, if he had any advice. Get in touch with John Michael Boyer, Mark told me. He's a great cantor, a wonderful teacher, and he's working on an English language curriculum that is going to be terrific. Life being what it was, I didn't actually email John until 2008. He very generously sent me a PDF that I still have of roughly the first 3 lessons of a book he said he was working on, saying that he expected to complete the book soon. As J.R.R. Tolkien said of his writing process for Lord of the Rings, the tale grew in the telling. Since that initial communication, I've had, if not quite a front row seat to the development of John's book, at least orchestra level in the rear third or so of the seating chart. And I've become acutely aware that John hasn't just been writing a textbook. If only it were that simple. The vision John has had for the book has meant that he has been simultaneously forging a path and drawing the map, and it has taken time to do it right. Tonight, 15 years after John sent me that first PDF, I am beyond thrilled as Capella Romana's Director of Publications to welcome you to the launch of Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, a lesson book. I have spent much of the last nearly 2 years working with John on the book's completion and printing, and it's been a tremendous blessing. I've read the finished product cover to cover multiple times now, and I'm truly proud of what he's accomplished. If you have any interest in Byzantine music from any angle, this book is for you. Notation, theory, history, style, manuscripts, bibliography, what have you. It is exactly the book I wished I'd had back in 2006. I believe it will be of great help to students now, and it will continue to be an invaluable resource for years to come. It has been worth the wait in every respect, and I'm overjoyed that we can all come together here, a cultural center for the Greek Orthodox Church in the United States generally, and one of the principal centers of Byzantine music activity and education in this country more specifically, and celebrate John's success with him. John, singharitiria, bravo, congratulations. Next slide, please. Tonight also marks the launch of something else. Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, is the debut title of the Capella Romana publishing imprint. Capella Romana is a performing ensemble, but to a certain extent our performances are but the tip of the iceberg. The kind of pioneering creative effort underlying John's book is also the foundation of virtually all of Capella Romana's projects. The scholarship of manuscript research, transcription, historical liturgical construction, and so on, an example of which we heard at Alexander's talk Monday evening. New composition. Many works are written for and in creative consultation with us, such as Heaven and Earth, a Song of Creation, which we will perform tomorrow night in Cambridge. Teaching. We've had our own robust internal program of Byzantine chant education and coaching for our singing roster so that as many of us as possible might be able to perform this segment of our core repertories in an informed and sensitive manner. And we've used earlier drafts of John's book for that purpose, and we will continue to use the published version of John's book for that purpose. All of this activity we offer to the public in order to give you at least a taste of the transcendence these musics represent through concerts, through recordings, and now through publications. Starting with Byzantine chant, the received tradition, Cappella Romana Publishing is a new imprint for high-quality publications of scores, scholarship, educational and pastoral materials related to and celebrating the ecclesiastical music of the Orthodox Church in all of its richness and variety. We're excited about this, and we look forward to showing you more of what we have planned in the very near future. But first things first. A key partner in this effort has been the International Society for Orthodox Church Music, or ISOCM, or ISOCM, as some people say. They have provided editorial and other kinds of support throughout the process of producing this book, and we couldn't have done it without them. I would like to introduce a video message from the very Reverend Father Dr. Ivan Moody, the chairperson of the Society, and a dear friend and colleague to all involved with Cappella Romana. Based in Estoril, Portugal, Father Ivan is a composer, conductor, and musicologist, and archpriest of the Serbian Orthodox Church. His largest works to date are Passion and Resurrection from 1992, a complete setting of the Akathistos hymn in English from 1998, and Kohelet from 2013. And other extended works include a series of concertos for piano, cello, recorder, double bass, and viola. His extensive output of liturgical music includes a Finnish language vigil service and the Greek liturgy, commissioned by Maestro Peter Yermahov in the Society of St. Romanos the Melodist, soon to be performed and recorded by Cappella Romana. Published research includes a large number of articles and papers on contemporary and early music, and a book, Modernism and Orthodox Spirituality in Contemporary Music. He is a researcher at CESCM Universidade Nova, Lisbon, editor of the Journal of the International Society of Orthodox Church Music, and co-editor of the Revista Portuguesa de Musicologia.
Dear friends, good afternoon, as it is here, or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am delighted to be able to talk to you today about the publication of Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, a lesson book by Protopsaltis John Michael Boyer. This publication, which has been years in preparation, because these kinds of publications are not things that appear fully formed overnight. They are the product of a lifetime's work, is a distillation of the work in chanting, transcribing, and teaching Byzantine chant that John has undertaken over the years. It is in the English language, itself a remarkable thing. There have been publications, primers in Byzantine chant in the English language before, but none as comprehensive as this, which will take you from the basics to the most refined areas of modal theory and how to apply these things to what you are singing on the chant stand. It is a great pleasure on behalf of ISOCM, the International Society for Orthodox Church Music, of which I am chairman, to have participated in a modest way in this publication, but in particular to be able to lend it our support as a society. And though the book is in English, I do believe that it can serve as a model for those wishing to sing Byzantine chant in languages other than Greek throughout the world. And it is a comprehensive and, I may say, comprehensible set of lessons from which if you follow it properly, you can learn to chant according to the experience of Protopsaltis John Michael Boyer. So I would encourage you to buy this beautifully presented book, which has been carefully prepared and printed by Capella Romana, and to extend the range of the Byzantine chant tradition beyond the Greek-speaking world, and to spread its manifold joys and its depths and riches to those who wish to chant in other languages. Congratulations, John. Congratulations, Capella. Congratulations to anyone who buys this remarkable volume, because you will have bought a treasure. Thank you.
Now, John is, of course, an alumnus of Holy Cross, graduating with his MDiv in 2014. He chanted here as the Chapel Lambadarios, and he was a central contributor to the school's groundbreaking bilingual recording of Byzantine chant for Holy Friday, All Creation Trembled, Orthodox hymns of the Passion Service, and himself mentored and taught many students during his time here. In recognition of that, I would also like to welcome Father Romanos Karanos, Adjunct Assistant Professor of Byzantine Liturgical Music and Director of the Byzantine Music Program at Hellenic College, Holy Cross. Father Romanos is pastor of Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Brockton. He joined the faculty of Hellenic College, Holy Cross in 2007. He holds a PhD in musicology from the University of Athens. He has lectured and performed as a soloist or member of various ensembles, including the Archdiocesan Byzantine Choir of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America and Psaltikon, in universities, concert halls, churches, and other venues throughout the United States and Europe. Father?
Your Grace, Bishop John, Reverend Fathers, esteemed academics, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of His Eminence Metropolitan Methodios of Boston, who asked me to represent him tonight, and of the entire Hellenic College Holy Cross community, I am honored and delighted to be present at what my mentor in musicology, Professor Emeritus Grigorios Stathis of the University of Athens, would call a καλλιτεχνικό και επιστημονικό γεγονός υψής της σημασίας, an auspicious, artistic, and academic event. Perhaps more significantly, the launch of John Michael Boyer's Byzantine chant, the received tradition, is a milestone in the history of the Church in America. In the last 20 years, original musical settings and adaptations of Greek original compositions by several composers, such as John Michael Boyer himself, Gabriel Kremines, Father Seraphim Diris, Samuel Heron, Nicholas Roumas, Georgios Thodoridis, to name a few, have begun to abound. We are now at a critical juncture in the history of liturgical music in the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. High-quality Byzantine settings of liturgical texts in English are no longer an oddity, but rather gradually becoming the norm. And yet, until this very moment, there was something missing. Having been a professor of ecclesiastical music and director of the Byzantine music program here at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology for over a decade, I have been asked time and again by the more inquisitive student, what does this martyrikon σημείων mean? Why do we need it? What do you mean that's an alpha? It looks like a Q to me. Why do we need both the Gorthmikon and the Pelastikon, and who came up with these names? Why are the martyriae for the diatonic and harmonic genera basically the same? Is there a book where all this theory is clearly laid out? And my usual response has been, well, yes, sure, there are some excellent books, στα ελληνικά, in Greek, much to the disappointment of the student. Now I am happy to be able to give a much more satisfactory answer to this type of question. Finally, we have a publication with extensive and thorough explanations of the notational system and of the overall theory and practice of the Celtic art. Byzantine chant, the received tradition, is a comprehensive primer into the new method of analytical notation, which was established in Constantinople in 1814. In one sense, the book is not original. In fact, originality is generally not prized in the cantorial world. On the contrary, it is often frowned upon. John follows in the footsteps of his teacher's teacher, Simon Karas, and Dr. Georgios Konstantinou, and he takes advantage of the findings of recent musicological research. What is original in the book is the fact that, first of all, it is the first one of its kind in English, and the clarity of explanations of even minute points that are usually glossed over by most teachers of the Celtic art. Moreover, the author offers an original method of presenting the material that, to my knowledge, has not yet been sufficiently explored in the English-speaking world. Rather than supply endless sets of tedious and largely unhelpful exercises, he introduces excerpts from the established repertoire in both Greek and English early on. This increases the student's appetite for more and quickly familiarizes him or her with the basic thesis or melodic formulae. Yanni, when you were a student here at Holy Cross, you used to tell me, τελειώνω, όπου να είναι. I'm close to finishing the book. In fact, I think when you first came to Holy Cross, you said that one of your goals is, along with the MDiv, to finish the book in these 3 or 4 years, right? It took a bit longer than that, but here it is, and we in the Holy Cross community are all extremely proud of your major accomplishment. Συγχαρητήρια.
Thank you, Father. And now, I would like to introduce our headlining speaker for the evening, John Michael Boyer. John is protopsaltis of the Greek Orthodox metropolis of San Francisco, director of the St. John Kukuzelis Institute of Liturgical Arts, founder and artistic director of Proto, and associate music director of Capella Romana. He began his study of Byzantine chant at age 14 under musicologist and Capella Romana music director Alexander Lingus, and went on to study under the late Archon Protopsaltis Lykurgos Angolopoulos, as well as with renowned cantor, composer, and musicologist Ioannis Arvanitis. John is a graduate of University of California at Berkeley, as well as Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology. As a teacher, John has worked for years with students of all levels, helping them achieve facility and proficiency with notation, theory, ornamental expression, vocal technique, and ear training. He is a prolific composer of English-language Byzantine chant, with his compositions serving as the centerpiece for Capella Romana's landmark Divine Liturgy in English recording, the aforementioned All Creation Trembled by the St. Romanos Byzantine Choir of Holy Cross, and Son of Justice, a recording of chants for Christmas with his close colleague, Father John Rasim El-Masih. As a composer and a conductor, John collaborated with renowned composers Matthew Arndt, Alexander Khalil, Kurt Sander, Richard Tensing of blessed memory, and Taiki Zess on Heaven and Earth, a Song of Creation, a multi-movement setting of the Vesperal Psalm, and conducted Capella Romana in the premiere recording of the work, released in 2022 on Capella Records. John currently resides in New Orleans, Louisiana, where he serves as protopsaltis and director of music at Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral. Byzantine Chant, the Received Tradition, is his first book. Currently in progress are his English language Anastasimatarion, or the Resurrectionary, and Book of Chants for the Orthodox Sacraments, coming soon. Please join me in welcoming John Michael Boyer.
It'll take me just a second because they want me to wear a lapel mic because I'm going to move around a little bit. Testing, testing. Does that work? All right. 1 second. I am truly overwhelmed, as you can tell by the fact that I'm not actually saying anything. Normally, I'm not quite so tongue-tied. But I have to say that I have tremendous respect for everyone that spoke before me tonight. And I can't really sufficiently express my gratitude to them all. I'd like to thank the Meliodas Cultural Center and its directors, as well as my alma mater, Hellenic College Holy Cross, for hosting us over these last couple of days. And tonight, I'm going to, on a night like this for a book release, what normally would happen is that the author would get up and read an excerpt. I don't think just reading an excerpt of a textbook is going to be particularly interesting. And so tonight, I'm going to start by acknowledging some people, and then we're going to have a little bit of a different kind of program. So to begin with, I need to take you through just a few of the people without whom this project that has consumed my life for the last 20 years would not have been, what happened to the mic? I'll use this one. That has consumed my life for the last 20 years would not have been possible. And so to begin with, the dedication page of this book has been, since its infancy, to my father, John S. Boyer, my first teacher, my first student, who is sitting right there. Evangelia elate. But since the inception of the book, there have been some changes in my life. And so the dedication now reads, and for my daughters, Mary and Ruby, and Fotidititika, the church awaits your voices. I guess it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to get really sloppy crying tonight, but please bear with me, because I promise it'll get to be a bit of fun in a bit. In addition, just like to acknowledge the aforementioned Archon Protopsatis Lykourgos Angelopoulos and Archimandrite Ephraim Lash, who was my late spiritual father and whose translations I use almost exclusively in my compositional work. Yes, what happened? In addition to that, I really need to acknowledge a number of people, so please do bear with me just for a couple of minutes. And if you get bored of me, you have the entertainment of my younger daughter over here. This work would not have been possible without the support and advocacy of my dear friend and Capella Romana's executive director, Mark Powell, the constant support of my mother, Maria Boyer, who provided not only substantial financial assistance, but whose critique has always kept my writing style honest. Jeffrey Gowan, whose generous grant allowed me to make considerable progress in this work. And my dear friend, colleague, advocate, student, and Capella Romana's Director of Publications, Richard Barrett, whose generous support in various forms over the years has kept this work going. The International Society for Orthodox Church Music and its chairman, the Very Reverend Dr. Ivan Moody, have my thanks for granting their imprimatur, and for providing granting their imprimatur and providing an external reader. Many thanks to those friends, advisors, and colleagues who have served as sounding boards for me over the years, Dr. Alexander Lingus, Dr. Ioannis He's fussy tonight. Dr. Ioannis Sarvanitis, Dr. Achilleas Chaldeakis, Dr. Alexander Khalil, the Reverend Dr. Romanos Karanos, Hiram Ephraim of Arizona and Alaska, Dr. Spiridon Antonopoulos, Yannis Panousakis, Yorgos Savas, Yannis Tsotsiopoulos, and especially my father, again, John S. Boyer, whose musical mind and ear have always given me a unique and thoughtful perspective. Many thanks likewise to the stellar cantors in the Byzantine tradition, in addition to those mentioned above, with whom I have sung, some only briefly, from whose styles and techniques I have gleaned and stolen more than they know. Archon Protopsatis Leonidas Asteris, Archon Lambadarios Stylianos Flikos, Archon Protopsaltis Photios Ketsetsis, Protopsaltis Iakovos, the monk of the Protaton of Manathos, Stelios Kondakiotis, Dimos Babadzalakis, Father Thomas Chrysikos, Adrian Sirbu, Dr. Konstantin Kokinis, who is getting married right now, and especially my dear friend and musical partner in Proto, Father John Rassam El-Masir. It pains me that my late teacher, Archon Protopsaltis Lykourgos Angelopoulos, did not live to see this book published. His passion for teaching the Psaltic art was a powerful inspiration for me, and in many ways led to this book being written. Likewise, the beloved, very Reverend Archimandrite Ephraim Lash, my late spiritual father, who not only gave me permission to edit and set his liturgical translations to music, but whose guidance and counsel also kept me on the path of Orthodox Christian ministry. Many thanks to the clergy with whom and for whom I have served over the years, especially His Eminence Metropolitan Gerasimos of San Francisco, whose beneficence granted me my title and role in our holy metropolis, Father Paul Paris and Father Christos Kalaitzis, Dean and Associate Dean of Holy Trinity Cathedral in Portland, Father Stephen Kyriakou, Dean of Annunciation Cathedral in San Francisco, Father James Ratellis and Father Timothy Robinson, Proistamenos and Associate Priest of Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Sacramento, Father Nicholas Triandafilou, President Emeritus of Hellenic College, Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, Father Andreas Houpos, and I will add now our illustrious chaplain and professor of canon law here at the school, my dear friend, Father Bartholomew Mercado, and the gentleman sitting next to him, whom I will mention in a minute, and the late Father Elias Stephanopoulos, who passed away in 1994, whose voice I still hear chanting the Divine Liturgy. This text would not be what it is without the input of all my dear students, past and present, who have, through their learning, formed the way I teach, especially Fotini Downey Robinson, my trusted Lambadarios for many years, who has also done considerable proofreading for this text, along with my friend and student musicologist, Dr. Carrie McCarthy, who helped me index the book. Many, 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 many thanks also to my dear friend, Father Patrick O'Rourke, whose beautiful artwork makes the text more bearable to read. And if you haven't picked up a copy of the book and held it in your hand, the reason it is so beautiful is his work, not mine. I'm grateful to my fellow teachers of the Psaltic art who have used this text in various drafts and whose input has helped immensely in its formation: Stelios Kondakiotis, Dr. Konstantin Kokinis, Dr. Alexander Khalil, Andrew Gorney, Dusan Radosavljevic, Richard Barrett, Samuel Heron, and Gabriel Cremines. Finally, all my love, now this is going to get sloppy. Finally, all my love and thanks to my exceedingly patient and understanding wife, Dr. Evangelia Bubuyadzi Boyer, thanks, who, being a published scholar and author herself, knows what is involved in writing a book of this scale, and who has shown nothing but love, support, and encouragement along the way. This book is for her and for our twin daughters, Miriam and Fotini. All right, enough of that. So, what's next? Well, chant class. This is a textbook. And so the next thing we have to do is, well, you could try to sing that. We will have a, let's say, not quite mock, but introductory sort of chant class. Oh, is that going to work? Let's see. Hang on just a second. There we go. And what I'm going to do is just take you through how I use the text in instruction, just little snippets from chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. All right? And so, for the moment, you are all now in Byzantine chant class. Congratulations. The soft diatonic scale. This is one of the four main scales used in Byzantine ecclesiastical chant. It has a similar structure to the C major scale, let's say, for those of you with a background in Western music, but with some important differences. Yada, yada, yada. It goes ni pa vulga di ke zoni. Let's all just sing that, shall we? Ni pa vulga di ke zoni. Right, okay. So it goes through and it explains what all those tones are. Notice that the vu is like, so I have to give a shout out to my longtime mentor, Dr. Alexander Lingus, who is in the room. Whenever he used to teach this scale to us, this is what he would look like. Ni pa vu ga di ke zo ni. Okay, that was how we learned to sing vu and zo properly. You're just gonna scowl a little bit. All right, so. And it works, right? Or what I tell some of my Western trained singers is just kind of, just be a little lazy on those notes and it'll come out right. Ni pa vu, right? And you just sort of, you can groove in that, right? All right, good, very good. So it goes through and explains, what the various relationships are. And then, but from day one, you have to be able to sing the scale up and down, and then sing the various relationships of intervals from within the scale, even before you learn a lick of notation. And that is because, as I tell my students, the scale, the notes of the scale degrees are your friends. And they're always there when you need them. And you can access them at any moment. Ni ke ga di pa ni pa zo di ni ni. All right. At any moment, you should be able to access any one of these friends to help you sing what you need to sing. All right. So the first exercise is just to sing the scale up and down. Let's try that. Ni pa vu ga vi ke zo ni zo ke vi ga vu pa ni. Excellent. And in order to establish the structure of the scale and the music based on it, it's important to form a really close relationship with the intervals of fourths and fifths, which are the basis of the tetrachords of Byzantine music. So we sing ni vi ni vi ni ga ni ga ni. That last one's always a doozy. Watch out for it. All right. Ni vi ni vi ni ga ni. Very good. We have some ringers in the audience, so we're doing very well. And then I take them through the third relationships. Ni vu di zo ni ke ga pa zo ni. Try it. Ni vu di zo ni ke ga pa zo ni. And then, very important, once you've established what the scale is, what the base of the scale is, be able to sing any note at a moment's notice, right? So sing ni. Ni, ke, ga, vi, pa, vu, ni. High ni, Yeah, lovely. All right. That's lesson 1, right? Or I guess it's lesson 2, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's 1 and 2 are basically together. All right. And then we get into notation, right? And so I take them through step by step. These are all the intervallic signs, the vocal signs, phonetica simia. And then I take it through step by step, the ison, the oligon, the apostrophos, the ever controversial oxia, and the petasti, kendimata, and iporoi. That's lesson 3. So, ison, same note. Oligon, up 1 note. Apostrophos, down 1 note. Oxia, also up 1 note. Petasti, also up 1 note. Kendimata, also up 1 note. At which point, somebody always asks me, why are there 4 ways to write an ascending second? To which my response is, I wasn't at the meeting. But I then actually sit down and describe the system and explain that actually each one of them tells you something different about what's going on in the line, what's going on in the music, and they're actually very helpful. All right, and then the poroi, and then of course the question is, why does the smallest character give you 2 notes when those of you in the crowd who know what I'm talking about get all these inside jokes, of course, but we have to not just introduce the characters, but say a little bit about them, right? It's not enough to just say, this goes up a step. Okay, well, that other thing went up a step, so why is this different? It's important to explain these things. All right, and then our assignments. We start to sing through the notation step by step. Exercise number 1 is what we've already done. Those of you who know how to read, go ahead. And I have to credit, by the way, all of these numbered exercises are from Yorgos Konstantinos' original text, Theoria και πράξη της εκκλησιαστικής μουσικής. I add to the lesson at the end of each lesson with repertoire examples as well. But all of these numbered examples in chapter 1 are his, and he has my profound thanks for his permission and support. Funny thing about Byzantine music, it doesn't always start on ni, right? So, number 2, pa, go. Pavugadi kezoni pa panizo kediravupa. Thank you for those of you who are flatting zo on the way down, except that in class I would tell you don't do that yet. And there's a good reason for it, and actually I may get into that in a little bit. So we go sort of step by step, and they get progressively more challenging, more interesting, applying more and more characters and how the characters are stacked and how they work together. I introduced the psifiston, this little upside down, this little swooshy guy here that tells us that that note is followed by 2 descending seconds, something that's very useful to know. Yeah, and then that's the end. Through 16 is the end of the numbered exercises from lesson 3. And just for fun, I give you a little of the so-called mega ison attributed to St. John Kukuzelis. Because, of course, that's what we are learning. Ison, oligon, oxia, etc. If you read what is in the manuscript there from the beautiful manuscript, Athens 2401. And so, and then you'll notice that we're missing a few pages. So at the end of each lesson, as Father Romanos alluded to, not only are these do they have these numbered exercises that you will go through and just sing parlagi, the solfege, but also be able to sing something from the ecclesiastical repertoire, albeit at these early stages slightly altered. Right. So this setting of ekeneotitosmu only moves by step. Okay, and so it's not going to be the thing that you think it is, so you actually have to read what's on the page. All right, so let's all sing it on parlagi, shall we? And vo 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 Gadi, 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 kadi, gavu. Vu, 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 pa, vu, gadi, gadi, gavu, gavu. Ekne oti tosmu pola, pole mime pathi. Alaftos andilavu και σώσον σωτήρ μου. And then I try, in every case, to have examples both in Greek and in English. From my youth up, many passions make war on me, but you, O Savior, help me and save me. And chapter 1 continues on and introduces more characters, rhythmic subdivision, rhythmic augmentation, and more and larger melodic leaps. Is it working now again? No, sort of. Yeah, I'm using both mics. All right. And then chapter 2 rolls around, and we get this thing called expressive ornamentation. And in order to, I have to say at this point that the most traditional way of learning traditional ornamentation and expression in Byzantine music is to start when you're, just a little bit older than my girls, and sit at the feet of the master and learn by osmosis and by doing and by being with that person and singing along, and basically how you learn to read your native language. For those of us that come to it late in life, however, that's not a possibility. And so what I do is I go through each of the expressive devices in Byzantine music and analyze them, not just so that to illustrate how many moving notes one can do for any given melodic phrase, but to give the student and the prospective and future cantor a plethora of tools to use for expressive ornamentation while rendering a particular chant. Okay, and so when we see something like this, all these analyses of the let's say of the petasti with the klasma here, this page. Okay, you'll notice how many different realizations there are. What I do, and I talk about this in the introduction to chapter 2, is say, all right, so we will learn now 3A. So just the structural notes, of course, is on Kyria here are Kyrie, right? Kyrie. Just sing Kyrie without ornamentation. Kyrie. And now the first and sort of simplest and most common are either one of these. We can just do this simplest one. Kyrie. Now, once the student has sung and sort of mastered how to do each of these, then I say, now look to the left of the equal sign and do it again. Right? Look to the left of the equal sign and sing exactly what you did when you read the analysis. So, Kyrie, and that comes in really handy when you have an analysis like down here at the bottom of 137. Kyrie, right? Now, so let's all sing that. Bum, 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 go. Kyrie, and now look to the left of the equal sign and do the same thing. Kyrie. What that does is create the association in the student's mind and ear and eyes of the the classical score, which is what you see to the left of the equal sign, and these possible realizations of it, right? And so just like the scale degrees of the scale are our friends and we need to be able to call on them at any moment, we also need to be able to call on any one of these realizations at any given moment. And then the student, the cantor, ends up developing one's own personal style and will favor one over another in certain contexts and so on. All right, so that's basically how chapter 2 works, and I go through each of these expressive devices, each of these ornaments in the repertoire. And for exercises, rather than just having them do them on parlahi, because sometimes the syllables of parlahi get in the way of these expressive devices, what do? We use kratimata. We use these syllables from the kratima tradition. So I'm sure I'll get all kinds of raised eyebrows about that. I can't believe he's introducing kratimata to the beginning students. No, it's just a tool to be able to sing these figures. So for instance, number 2, with parlahi, which is the first thing you do, ni pavu pa ni pavu, right? It's actually hard to articulate, to execute that figure, because that usually happens over one syllable, right? So instead of trying to come up with a text that would fit this, I just used these very useful kratimata syllables that are present in our tradition anyway. And that way the student gets a sense of how these melodimata, not whole theses, but these little figures, how they work and interact with the text. All right? And then at the end of that lesson, I would also include repertoire examples that, lo and behold, use the petasti a lot, right? Because we're learning the petasti. So, and then, but wait, there's more. At the beginning of chapter 3, chapter 3 is the beginning of the modal theory section of the book. We start with a number of elements of what goes into what a mode is. And then I spend quite a few pages talking about the apihimata, the intonations of the 8 modes, all right? And because often, it's one of these questions. What are these things that we say before each mode? Ananas. What does that mean? Well, sort of means pineapples, but not quite. Ananas, pineapples was an ongoing joke in the dorms when I was a student here. But what I do is explain that originally these apihimata were the parlahi, the solfege of Byzantine music before the reforms of the 19th century. And so in order for a cantor to sing through a piece, rather than having the convenience of the 7-syllable system of solfege, say that 10 times fast, they had to sing this, each individual intonation, 4 for ascending and 4 for descending. Okay, so ananas, neanas, na na, ahia, and then just like our modern solfege, they repeat ananas, neanas, na na, ahia, and then for descending anas, neanas, ananas, neahia, anas, neanas, ananas, neahia. And so the point that I make here, this method is appropriate for a musical system structured around the tetrachord rather than the octave. So in Western music, of course, music is based on the octave. Bum, ba, 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 bum, bum. But by and large, even in our modern received repertoire, received tradition of the Byzantine music, melodies are based on tetrachords, on these stacks of 4 notes with 3 intervals, or pentachords, stacks of 5 notes with 4 intervals, and that provides the structure of the melodies. So the problem is, though, with this old system, that the common practice was to sing the full apichima, not only for each note in the melody, but for each note traversed by a melodic leap as well. So, for instance, if one were faced with an ascending fourth from pa to the in our modern system, one would sing the apichima for pa, vu, ra, and the. Thus, to sing the old paralahi for the opening lines to Kyrie Kekraksa in the first mode, it would be something like the following. Ananas, neanes, aneanes, ananes, neanes, nana, necheanes, aneanes, neahie, necheanes, nana, ananes, neanes, aneanes, ananes, neanes, nana, ahia, anes, ahia, anes, necheanes, aneanes, neanes, aneanes, ananes. And I will also read this part. As tedious as this may seem, it instills in the student an important concept, that each note is, by virtue of its position in the scale, not merely a note, but the base of its own mode. Each time we sing it, however fleetingly, we experience it, at least in some small way, the mode for which it serves as a base. For this reason, the apichimata are used not only to name individual notes, but to name the modes that are based on them. The ascending apichimata for the authentic modes, and descending apichimata for the plagal modes. This is at the beginning of the modal theory section. Yes, Father, you have a question?
Quick question. So what would be the actual modern parallagi of this as a song? It would be much shorter, right?
Yeah, vul pa pa vul ga vul pa ni ni sa ni vul pa, right? But before we had ni pa vugadi kezo, this was the paralahi of Byzantine music. And so, although we don't use it now, by and large, to learn our melodies, it's important to know that. It's important to have that foundation of that system as being also the foundation for our modal system itself. All right. And there's one of our lovely illustrations by Father Patrick O'Rourke. Often these apichimata appear in manuscripts in the form of a wheel. And believe it or not, you can use this wheel to navigate the notes of the scale. So you start with ananes, neanes, nana, ahia. If you want to keep going up the scale, you just go back up to the top. Ananes, etc. But let's go down. So ahia. If you want to go down now, you cross to the other side of the wheel. Okay. Anes, and you go left. Necheanes, aneanes, neahie. And if you want to keep going down the scale, you just go back up here. Anes, necheanes. But wait, let's go up. Na, there it is on the other side of the wheel. All right. So it's they kind of knew what they were doing back then. All right. And there are questions for review. And then the exercise at the end of this introductory lesson for this chapter is choose any piece from the repertoire examples in the previous chapter and sing it on the apichimata. All right. And this, again, instills in the student this sense of the structure of the music. All right. Last little foray into, let's see. Yeah, let's go over here. So, I begin, lesson 1 in modal theory is the fourth mode, ahia, which I'm sure every Byzantine music instructor will go, Agia is one of the most challenging modes to master. But the problem is, it's in every other mode. And it serves as the foundation, really, of the entire modal system, at least those modes based on the upper tetrachord, okay? So, and here, some of the things that Father Romanos was alluding to, where does this martirico simio come from here, right? The modal signature. Well, the old apichima for agia, fourth mode agia, was agia, which, if you know any of Capella Romana's music, you've probably heard me or Alexander or one of us sing from time to time. And at the end of that apichima, as a sort of clarifying mark, the scribe would write in this character here, if you can see at the bottom of that left page, okay, and it's also up here at the top, which is a stylized delta, stands for 4. So, by the way, fourth mode. That end of the apichima then survives as a snapshot, which then over the centuries becomes this modal signature. Right. So every time you see a modal signature, what it is shorthand for the old apichima. And sometimes it's shorthand for the current apichima, depending on what the mode is. All right. So I take the students through the scale and the structure of the mode. So dominant tones of the mode, in this case, the bass, and then zo, upper knee, upper paw occasionally, and then melodic attractions, how certain notes in the scale are attracted to other notes in the scale, and then examples of how exactly that works in the context of that particular mode. So I'm not going to take you through all of that now, but because we're actually getting on this evening. By the way, just as a quick aside, this initial lesson in modal theory, in which we explore just briefly the fourth mode agia, which of course is one of the most challenging modes, every single one of these examples of agia are actually from pieces in other modes, right? Illustrating the point that if you don't have a foundation in what this mode sounds like, you won't actually be able to sing those other modes correctly. All right, so that's how that ends up working. And so to end this evening, I'd actually now ask my friends and colleagues in Capella Romana to come up and join me a bit, and we'll just sing through this Alleluia by my grand teacher, Simon Caras, which is found on page 280, which is in this mode agia. And if I can muster up a voice. What's that? Yes, page 280 is still the front, well, the second third of the book, barely. The whole book is 622 pages, I think. But that's together with indices and bibliographies and all that. Okay. Come up, yeah, why not? Our ladies and gentlemen, Capella Romana. Yes. Happen. Oh, I'll just wing it. All right. You can come on this side of me too. Come on over here. Some of you.
He won't elbow you.
An hour a day. An hour of practice a day. An hour a day keeps the elbow away. All right.
I think we have time for one or two questions. Father Costin, let me bring you the mic.
John, I'm sure you have already used this for a number of years. What was your experience with groups of complete beginners with this book?
Groups of complete beginners is like with anything. Anybody who's language, for instance, if you have a group of complete beginners, that group shrinks in size by week 3, right? But those that stick with it, I also do a lot of very sort of carefully direct instruction for people meeting where they are. In some cases, students will come to me who have pitch. Sometimes students will come to me who just don't know how to use their voice at all. And so I have to start there, right? Even before getting into any of this. And I don't say the book, but just my general approach is I assume that a student comes to me knowing nothing and try to take them step by step at a pace that will work for them. And I have had the success of not just professional singers like we have in Capella Romana, but just people who are interested, who have become cantors and have become, actually members of Capella Romana after the fact, right? So it seems to work. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I hate to ask this question.
Oh, boy.
But is there somewhere in the future an audio visual for this so that as a student we can follow it along?
Yes, first of all, I will say that, and I make the point in the introduction of this book, no book can replace a teacher. And this book is designed to be used in order to facilitate and enhance and support the teacher-student relationship. And that teacher doesn't need to be me. As I said in my introductory remarks, there have been a number of teachers that have used this text as it has been developed over the years. That being said, we have a dedicated website that slowly but surely we are populating with recordings of all the exercises and musical examples that are in the text. So that's has already been a great help to my students for sure. And so, yeah, there you are.
And that website is?
bizchantlessonbook.com or bizchantlessonbook.com. Any other questions?
I have a question, John.
Yes.
So you made a passing reference to it earlier. As you put it, the ever controversial Oxia.
There we go.
Would you say something about that and explain, unpack that for
Sure.
some people here who might not know what you were talking about?
It's a bit of inside baseball, of course, but for those of us that are in the know, we also know that the certain symbols that you will find in my book and in certain books that have been published in the 20th and 21st centuries will include some symbols and characters that don't appear in traditional 19th century publications. And I use them, frankly, because that's how I learned. But the goal is to be able to pick up a piece of classical repertoire from these 19th century reprints and music composed in that ilk, and be able to sing it in a fully formed, expressive, and traditional manner. This is one of the ways you get to do that, right? Unfortunately, the Kara school in general, and I make it clear in the introduction that this is not Kara's verbatim. It's not like I did a translation of his Theoretikon, right? But I use elements of his method in order to teach certain elements of the received tradition as I have learned it from my teachers, and then also added to by singing with accomplished colleagues and teachers over the years. So, if you don't want to use the extra symbols, don't use the extra symbols. But especially if you come to this later in life, they help. They help to learn how to render melodies in a particular way of expression and ornamentation. And it's one approach. It's the approach that I happen to take.
Your professor was Lykurgos Angelopoulos. I want to ask something. Are you following in his footsteps, and you're going to use this book in order to correct the errors of the fellows that are not chanting good by throwing it as far as possible as he used to?
As I said, an hour a day keeps the elbow away. Angelopoulos was a spitfire of a man when he was in his role as teacher or as cantor and choir director. And then we'd all go out to dinner, and he would be an absolute pussycat. He would be just the sweetest man you've ever met. And of course, since his passing, a lot of us, fellow students of his, have traded stories about his particular ways and methods in choir practices and in the classroom and at the chanter stand. I remember one of the last times that I chanted with him, I was by this time protopsaltis of the metropolis of San Francisco. I had multiple recordings out. I was an accomplished cantor. I was to his left. Another of my colleagues was to his right. We were chanting in church, and something happened out in the nave that diverted our attention, and we ended up like this. And all of a sudden, it was our turn to chant. And he looked and noticed that no one was paying attention. So he might as well have been boxing out for a rebound, right? Just right like this. Now, to an American audience, of course, that seems absolutely abusive. Yes, thank you. But my colleague and I just sort of sheepishly grinned at each other. Yeah, we weren't paying attention. The thing with Angelopoulos always was, and this is something, by the way, that I also gleaned from my very brief time chanting with Archon Protopsatis Leonidas Asteris. Every time these gentlemen chanted in church, it was the most important thing they'd ever done. Whether it was a long Hierovikon, cherubic hymn, or a communion verse, or if it was the simplest Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, it was the most important thing that they had ever done. And they expected and demanded the same kind of attention and presence from everybody that came up and chanted with them. Right? So in that respect, yes, I am following in his footsteps. My elbow has gotten a little lighter in recent years. But ask my students in New Orleans what happens. And he's like, yeah, I got one of my students, and he said, yeah, I got 3 elbows and 1 stink eye today. I was like, yeah, you're doing better. But it's always just a little, hey, be here. Right? If your mind is elsewhere, if your attention is elsewhere, you're not doing what we have a job to do in the moment. Right? And that's always what these men were about, always.
Maria, let's give you the last question.
Oh boy. No.
Is Father Patrick O'Rourke in the room?
He's right there.
Okay.
Okay, come on up here. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did that earlier, but yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I asked him if he wanted to say anything. He told me no, so I did.
Well, fine. Let's end it with mushies. Stay here.
Okay.
As you heard with my name, Father Patrick O'Rourke.
Patty O'Rourke.
Irish by the grace of God, don't you forget it. I'm an Ishoti, okay? I came to the faith when I was in school at Ohio State, and at the very beginning, I knew that there were a lot of things different in this Eastern approach than in the church traditions that I grew up in and around, Protestant and Catholic. And one of them was music. And so I did what any early 2000s college student would do. I went on YouTube, and I just searched Byzantine chant. And the first thing that came up was this man's voice. And the rest of Capella chanting the Lament for the Fall of Constantinople, which immediately became my favorite piece of music ever. John doesn't like this part, but it's what I would listen to fall asleep at night. But John's voice and his expertise was formative in my experience in even finding the Orthodox faith, let alone stepping into it. And then as a matter of chance, when I came to visit this sacred school for the first time as a prospective student, I walked into the chapel because I got lost in Brookline. I was supposed to be here at about 3 in the afternoon, and I got here at 5 because Boston roads.
Yes.
And as I walked into the chapel, I heard that same voice again. And I didn't know that he was a student. I walked in, and chanting on the left was John Boyer. And then after the fact, he asked if I wanted to go for burgers, and I said, And John and I quickly became friends. When I became a student, we actually lived down the hall from each other. I was blessed to have John chant my wedding. So when we make jokes about John's ever-present, almost done book, that's a foundational part of my relationship with him. And then when he asked me if I would contribute something to the book in its cover art and other things, it was as an especially poignant moment that he would ask for my contribution to his life. So thank you. And on behalf of the president of this sacred school, Mr. George Cantonis, whom I'm representing tonight, he sends his regrets that he can't be here, but it is a joy for me to welcome back to this campus my dear friend, John Boyer. Thank you. Thank you. Please enjoy refreshments.
Yeah. So
one
last bit of business. We do have books for sale. They are discounted still at the pre-order price of $74.99, down from the suggested retail price of $89.99. So you are getting a deal tonight. If you are paying by card, you can scan a QR code, and that's probably the simplest way to do it at this point. Cash and check is also fine, but also John's here. He's willing to sign books, I believe. So talk to him, get to know him. He's a great guy, and please enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.